This is a session on idea validation. My name is Kieran, aka No Code Life. A big fan of 100 Days. I've known Max since he started it, and I think it's just a fantastic community. And yeah, I think the build weekend is a great idea to ship products and get things out there quickly without the kind of procrastination that inevitably hits everyone. So in this session, I'm going to cover who I am, a bit about why you should validate, because I know it's not actually that intuitive, and certainly I spent a lot of my years not validating anything, and I'm going to tell you a bit about that. How to validate, and also how to find ideas that you want to validate. A bit about the importance of distribution, which I think is really more important than the idea itself. And then I'm going to talk about Yep, which is a product I built to force myself and to help myself do validation. And I'm going to do a live demo, which I'm a bit nervous about. And the aim of this, obviously, as Harold said, is to warm you up for the build weekend, help you find good ideas to build, but also in general, I think it's just really good to know for any makers. So who am I? So I guess, yeah, since about 2005, I was a typical entrepreneur coming up with, I think I read the 4-Hour Work Week in 2005. And then I was coming up with tons of ideas for random businesses, never got any of them off the ground, but I just got excited about them. I tell everyone, and all my friends got really bored of it. In 2015, I actually managed to start a proper startup with a technical co-founder who I met at a local event, and we're still going today. So I'd say it's a success. It's not a huge success, but it's a success because it's still running. And then I was always still frustrated, kind of wanting to do side projects, but because I'm non-technical, I couldn't do it. In 2019, I discovered no code, and I just went crazy and started building as much stuff and getting all the ideas out of my head, not doing any validation at all. And I shipped at least 18 different things in a couple of years, and almost all of them fell flat because I didn't do any validation or marketing, which I will mention a bit later. But so from last year and until now, really, I've been trying to focus and do more validation and do more marketing. So that's a bit about me. I'm kind of coming from the point of view of someone who didn't really know anything about validation or like validation at all until recently. So hopefully, if you're in a similar boat to that, it'll be like speaking to a friend. So the question that I had not that long ago was why bother to validate? You know, my ideas are good. I can get them out there really quickly. Surely if I build a good product, people are going to want to use it. But actually, there's a ton of reasons why you should validate. I mean, the real purpose of validation is to expose your idea to the practicality of the real world before you do any building. Because as you know, building things, even if you're using no code, even if it is quick to build that MVP, it does take time. The other thing is, once you spend a lot of time building things, you are kind of emotionally invested in that, and you're less willing to pivot, and you might end up pursuing an idea for, you know, a few months, which is really a lot of time when you think of how precious our time is. So I've done that many times, and it didn't work out well. Other reasons are that actually it can help you to find product market fit faster, because you are getting out there, you're verifying that demand exists, or you're finding that demand doesn't exist, and you can pivot your idea before you've actually put pen to paper or drag and dropped things around in Bubble, and you haven't invested this time in making something that you're then less willing to pivot. So really, the summary of all these reasons is that you're reducing your risk and increasing your chances of success by validating. So you're really trying to find out, is this a real problem that I'm addressing? Does my solution actually solve this problem? And will people pay for my solution? So if you think of products like Google Glass, which was done by one of the wealthiest companies in the world, and eventually got shut down. But they went as far as actually making the final physical product and putting it out into the world. So obviously they didn't do the validation experiments that they should have done before they built it. They got too excited about the technology, and it's very easy to do that. So how should you validate ideas? Because I know it sounds very abstract and a little bit scary. It's not that scary, but it does require a little bit of structure and thought about the way you want to do things. So really, when you're approaching validation, you need to validate the problem that you're trying to solve, the market that you are solving that problem for, and the product itself. So do people want to use it? Will they actually pay for it? Or are there other options? So the first thing you want to do really is define your goal. So at this stage, you want to say, what do I want to learn from this? So it might be that there are things that you've already validated, or it might be that everything needs validating. So for example, you might want to validate the problem. So is it a true problem that is worth solving? You might want to validate the solution that you have. So you know the problem exists now. Is your solution actually going to solve that problem? Is it what people want? Then you might want to validate the features that are part of your solution. So has the core feature that I've come up with, does that actually solve the problem? Is that really the solution that I need? And then of course the business model. So is it viable? Is it scalable? And the price, which obviously ties into that. So is there demand for this product at this price? And will it actually be a profitable business if you make it? So that's just a few things that you can choose to validate. So the second step is to develop a hypothesis. So this is kind of the scientific way of doing it. The idea is that instead of trying to test all those things at once, so say I thought, okay, I'm just going to test everything at once, which is exactly what I used to do. I would just build the full product with the pricing and everything, and then I'd put it out there. And I'd find that people didn't use it, but I wouldn't know why. Is it because of the problem that doesn't exist? Is it my solution? Is it because my pricing is too high? I wouldn't understand which of those things was the failure point for that. So the idea of developing a hypothesis and breaking it down into different things you want to test, so different assumptions, is that you can work out which of your assumptions are correct and which ones are wrong, which ones are the faulty ones that are preventing your idea from succeeding. So the key is to start from the most critical assumption, the one that could, if it doesn't turn out to be true, could mean that your idea is dead in the water. So for example, to give a real life example, so for Airbnb, their main critical assumption was that people are willing to stay at a stranger's house, and that strangers are willing to rent out their homes that homeowners are willing to rent out their homes to strangers. Okay, so this is actually quite a big and out there assumption in the world before Airbnb. And so that was the critical assumption that they really needed to test. And the way they did that was to actually, I think there was a big conference in San Francisco where they lived, and all the hotels were booked up. So they put some airbeds in their apartment and they rented them out to people who are coming to this conference. And they discovered that people were willing to pay strangers to stay in their house on airbeds so they could attend this conference. So they validated the most critical assumption of their model by actually doing it that way. But there are obviously tons of other things that they needed to validate along the way. So the next step is to design your experiment, which will test the assumption you're targeting at this time. So, and you want to find the fastest, cheapest, most efficient way to test it. And it doesn't need to be very complicated. So it could just be, depending on what you're testing, it could just be interviews. So you could just talk to your target customers and find out, is this a real problem? What solutions are you looking at the moment? What are you paying for? It could be a landing page, which I'm going to talk about in a bit, or it might be that you feel you need a full prototype to really understand whether people want your solution. So there are different ways to do it, and it could just be a PDF that you send to someone that describes your idea, but you need to adjust it based on the kind of people you're trying to reach. And then obviously when you're when you're talking to people, you want to, you don't want to ask leading questions and things like that. You need to be very open and just listen and learn from people, and listen for recurring themes such as people saying they will buy your products. That means they could be your target market. People who are actually already paying for something similar, so that will help guide your pricing, and people who will buy it and say they will keep buying it, so that shows demand. And then the last step is to actually do the validation. So confirm whether your assumption is valid or invalid. And then if your critical assumption is correct, then you can start refining your idea, and you can go back to the start of this process and do it for another assumption and another assumption. So by doing this, you can refine your idea. And obviously, while you're doing this, you're hopefully talking to your target customers. So you can discuss and learn, and very likely slightly change or completely change your idea based on customer feedback. So to give you a more tangible, real life example of this, so you may have heard of Buffer, which is a social media scheduling tool. So they actually validated their assumption that people wanted to be able to schedule their tweets with a simple landing page, which looked exactly like this. So the first landing page, and people clicked on plans and pricing, and then it said, we're not yet ready, but if you drop your email here, then you'll be reminded when we launch. So they put this out there, and they got a lot of people signing up with their email address. So they figured, okay, there's demand for this idea, and we can start conversations with people who've put their emails in and learn what they actually want. But the next step is to find out, will people actually pay for this? So they added another page to their website, which was in the middle of those two steps, and it gave these pricing plans, and they took the metrics of which pricing plans people clicked on, and from that they could work out how many people would pay and roughly how much they would pay for it. So in the first instance, they were validating, is there demand? And the second instance, they knew there was demand, but they were then validating how much people would pay. So they ran these two distinct experiments. And just to say, there's some good resources out there, like there's a book called The Mom Test, about talking to your target audience. But when you do, don't make the mistake that I often do, which is I'm so excited to tell them about my idea. I spend the whole time pitching them, and they say, yeah, that sounds great. When in actual fact, I should have been asking them about the problems they face, because you'll get so much more insight, and you'll likely find out that your idea isn't actually what they're after. And it's just such a valuable learning experience talking to customers and listening to them. So that's about validation. The next bit is about finding good ideas. So there's tons and tons of different frameworks and thought processes for finding good ideas. The one that I've kind of settled on after many years of wasting time on crazy ideas that I could never build or that no one really wanted, is that I take the audience first approach, which has been popularized by people like Arvid Kahl, which is really to look at what are the groups of people that you have access to, that you're part of. So it could be your friends and family, it could be the place you work, so it could be either clients you have from work, or it could be your actual workplace itself, your employer. What software do they use? What problems do they face? Or it could be hobbies and interests. So it could be you're interested in no code. It could be you play football, or you are learning a musical instrument. So you're part of all these different small communities. And although you may not feel like you are an influencer or you have an audience in this, you still have a lot of knowledge. And really, you need to be looking for these niche areas. You don't want to be thinking of solutions to problems like I want to build the next Facebook, because your chances of doing that are just so much lower than if you can find a real small niche with a powerful need that you can address. So when you're looking for problems that these groups face, some important things to look at is this problem specific? So does your target customer know what it is? Can they articulate it well? If they can't, if it's a bit too vague, then it may not be painful enough for them that it requires a solution. Is it something that's immediate? So, for example, if my Wi-Fi breaks, I need it to be fixed like right now. It's in an emergency. But if a light bulb goes out, then it can wait. So, is it something that they'll instantly want it fixed? What's the frequency with which they encounter that problem? So is it something that's once a year? So it's like related to, I don't know, Christmas or something like that? Or is it something that they have every day or multiple times a day? In which case, they're more likely to be a repeat customer. They're more likely to be willing to pay a monthly subscription for something that happens regularly. And also, do they perceive it as wasting their time, money, or their effort? Because if they do, then you can show them quickly that you're going to save them time, money, or effort. Then it makes it a much easier sale. And then if I identify things like that, then I also ask myself these like 3 key questions, because I always assume that if I'm going to build something and it's going to go on to be a success, then I might be working on it for 10 years. So I always think, do I really love working with this target customer? So, you know, potentially I could come up with an idea that's serving lawyers, but do I really want to work with lawyers for the next 10 years? Probably not. Do I love the problem that I'm like, is it something that affects me? Is it something that I can empathize with? And also, will these people pay? And once I've found a problem that fits all those criteria, then I start to think about solutions and getting paying customers and iterating that solution to find out exactly what they'll pay for. Because it's worth noting that when you look at a customer and you see all the problems that they have, it's only a very small subset of those problems that they will pay to solve. If you think of all the problems in your own life, there are tons that you may get, you know, a startup pitching to you saying, I can solve this problem, but actually you think, I'm fine with that problem, I will work around it, I can live with it, or there are free alternatives that will solve this. So there are actually a very small subset of the general problems that people will pay to solve. And when you are doing validation, you shouldn't just validate your idea, you need to validate your ability to distribute it. So this is a little anecdote about an idea that I had in December 2019. This was when I just discovered no code for the first time. And I was speaking to someone at a charity who was saying she had all these great testimonials from people. And I just came up with a random idea. Oh, it'd be great if you could get video testimonials from people because they're so powerful. And she kind of agreed with everything I said. And so I immediately went onto no code and I started building this platform. I built the full working thing with payments and everything as a full SaaS platform. It worked really, really well. I got this charity using it. I didn't charge them any money. I got a load of my friends using it for their own businesses, but they weren't really using it because they all tried a couple of times to get a video testimonial, and then they discovered that actually they weren't able to do it. So I figured, okay, the idea must be flawed. Video testimonials aren't a thing. They're too hard to get. So I shut the whole thing down. And then a year later, this guy I saw on Twitter launched testimonial.to, which at the time was just video testimonials. It was very, very similar to VidPops. And within a year and a half, he'd hit 20K or $20,000 MRR, recurring revenue. So, you know, obviously I was like, wow, this is crazy. But I also realized that I had just been terrible at marketing and distributing my idea. And this guy's obviously done a fantastic job. But the problem wasn't the idea. The problem wasn't even the execution, because my platform did virtually the same thing as his. The problem was my ability to sell it. And whether that's because I didn't have access to the right audience or just because I'm terrible at selling, it's really important to be able to validate early on that you actually are able to sell the product that you're going to make. And sure, you can learn to distribute and you can learn to sell, but it's still something to consider. And I saw this really good quote by this guy, Alex West, who I follow on Twitter, who's an indie maker. And he said, the hard thing is not finding an idea with demand. The hard thing is not even building it. It's consistently finding new customers. And for that, you need a solid distribution channel. So he said, like, so, you know, he could give you 10 ideas with demand right now. Just make an alternative to Netflix, an alternative to Shopify. Those are ideas with demand. And yes, you could build those things with no code, but how are you going to find customers? You can't just build them and find customers. So if you have access to a distribution channel, then you're at an immediate huge advantage. And that's why I think it's really the most important thing, more important than the product, more important than the idea, because your idea can change very, very quickly. You can change it instantly. Your product, you can change quite quickly, especially if it's built with no code. You can pivot it. But distribution takes a long time to build up, whether you're doing it by SEO, whether you're building a Twitter audience, whether you're building a community on Facebook. It takes a long time to build it up. And if you find you've got it wrong or you can't do it, then it's going to take a lot of time to change that. So you've got to choose your idea carefully. But if you're thinking, I don't have any kind of audience, I don't have any kind of presence anywhere, I don't have any distribution, I just wanted to give you a couple of ideas a couple of examples of ways you can build distribution from scratch. So this is a guy I interviewed for a newsletter that I was writing a couple of years ago. So he started this home inspection software company. He knew nothing about home inspection. He learned about it from his friends, but he built it to 20,000 monthly recurring revenue in 2 years with no prior audience. And the way he did that was just hanging around with lots of home inspectors, going on all their forums, getting to know them, taking them out for coffee, giving them help and advice on other topics unrelated to home inspection, and just subtly plugging his idea in the background. Another guy, Dominic Sobe, who has recently launched this thing, HelpKit, which is a Notion help center app. So he started from nothing. He had no Twitter following, anything like that. And he just posts regularly on Reddit and Twitter and indie hackers and interacts with people. He doesn't push his app, but he's already got it to 3,000 MRR in just 6 months. So he's doing really well. And this maker, Cheyenne, who I also interviewed, so he built this massive wait list. Again, he had no Twitter following, no followers on Reddit or anything like that. And he just did it through posting repeatedly on these social media channels, posting lots of nice screenshots and getting people interested in his ideas. So don't feel that you need to have this massive audience or anything to start your idea. You can start from scratch. And in summary, so this is the evolution of my thinking. So I used to think, I have an idea, I don't want to tell anyone about it. So I just build the whole thing before anyone has a chance to steal it. Then I launch the full product to everyone, and then I can't find anyone to use it. So I've done that many, many times. My thinking now is that I actually start with a potential customer in mind, and then I find out if they're actually going to make good customers. So are they willing to pay for stuff? Are they the kind of people that I want to be helping for the next 10 years? Then I look at the problems they face and try and find one that's critical. And then I come up with one idea for a solution. It may not be the right idea, but it is an idea. And then I try and validate that, or I invalidate it, and I come up with another idea, and so on. And then as I'm building it, I'm getting their feedback at every step. So that's kind of how I came up with the idea for Yep.so, which is an idea validation tool, which I built. It was based off of seeing a lot of people find no code and go through exactly the same journey as me, where they were just launching stuff and building stuff and finding that no one really wanted it. So I built this really to force myself to do these tests and to get things out there really quickly, not overthink things and not become too attached to an idea. So now I'm going to give you a live demo, which, as we all know, is highly risky. But I don't know if there are any questions at this point. Please ask away or drop them in the chat if you want, and Harold can relay them to me.
Does anyone have any questions, or maybe if Kieran is going to demo Yep, someone has an idea he can build?
Yeah, that would be great.
Someone is feeling creative.
Yeah, I get an idea that I would like to suggest. Hey, Kieran, thanks for the presentation. It was really amazing. So I want to build a workout planet, but just for martial arts, like martial arts drills, basically. So
Okay.
that you can share with anybody, that you can, like basically take anybody's routines and build and turn them in your own, so you can copy their workouts and so on.
Okay, so it's like people who are into martial arts can create their own plans on the app, and then other people can choose to use them.
Yeah, like this trading app, like it's Spark Toro or something, that you follow people that you want to copy their trading strategies. So basically that same concept, but for martial arts.
Okay, great. Yeah, all right, let's do that. I think Harold is going to share this link with you, but
yeah, well, we'll share this afterwards.
Yeah, so
we can watch the demo of Kieran.
Yeah, you're going to get a link which will take you to this page here. I haven't tested this this particular function for a while, but basically I'm going to do a live sign up. So you'll see exactly this. And this will take you to the Build Weekend page. So what that will have done is it will have created you a Yep account. It will also have given you a free pro account, which means you can build up to 50 pages. So I advise you click on that link rather than sign up the usual way. And then you go to the menu and click create page. So what do you want to call this idea?
Marshall Powell or something like that.
Okay. Let's put in
nice.
Okay, so this is the landing page builder. It's based on Harry Dry's landing page guide, so you can open that in a new tab, but we won't do that right now. So the most important bit of any landing page, as you probably know, is the headline and the subtitle, because that's the first thing that everyone sees. So the headline of any landing page needs to be thinking about the outcome that your users want to achieve and trying to explain the value you're going to provide to them as simply as possible. So this could be something like
could be train like your favorite martial artist. Like that's the goal of the product, right? Like,
yeah, that's good. That's better than what I was thinking. Okay, so train like your favorite martial artist, and then the subtitle is where you kind of give some evidence of how you're going to do that. So this is where we do a very brief explanation of what the product will do.
Okay.
So it's going to be, you're going to be able to follow.
Yeah, curate, or yeah, like the idea is to curate the relevant workouts or routines or even guides that these martial artists put out there, so you can design your own with like expert advice, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, and then so presuming you don't have a product, so we just want them to join a wait list.
Okay.
Okay, so that's all you need to create a basic landing page. We can also go down, and so a really good thing is to add some kind of social proof or quote here. So if you obviously you don't have any testimonials from people, I don't know if you have testimonials relating to your prowess as a martial artist, but otherwise you could just find a quote from someone who is respected by the community that's kind of relevant, like I love learning from my peers rather than experts, that kind of thing. You can also we can also add a relevant image. So that's a good one. And then, so the idea is that you can go through all of these. You can do as much or as little as you want, but I'll just show you what the different areas are. So you can have your features, or you can try and predict the objections people might have. So they might say, they might think, I only want to learn from experts. And so you can respond to that directly here. You can say, you know, learning from your peers is like X% more effective or something like that. Learn from people who are a step ahead of you.
Yeah, so I got one question. So in landing pages, I've seen that structure where, sorry, where they kind of break down in like 3 sections with those like displays, right? On the left, like switching between left and right, where they tell you, automations, perfect for your marketing team and so on. So those are kind of a breakdown or subdivision of the main outcome or of the main struggle of your product is supposed to solve, right?
Yeah. So if you think someone's arrived at this page, they've seen this, they've thought, okay, I'm interested enough that I'm going to scroll down. So this is where you want to answer any doubts that you think they might have, or it's where you want to further cement the value of your product. So obviously the best thing you can have is like real screenshots showing like killer features that they're going to want to see. But if you don't have that, then you could instead be answering any doubts they might have, or just basically cementing, because they've already scrolled down, so they are kind of interested. And this is where you can lead them down this path. And then here you can have another testimonial from someone, which is like, oh yeah, that's so true. Then you can have frequently asked questions here, which is where you again answer any objections they might have, or just common questions, and then remind them why they need to sign up. And then hopefully they will leave their email address. And then finally, at the bottom, you can have a founder letter, which is just a really good kind of long form way. Like if they're interested enough that they got this far, then this is where you can really pull them in and get them to develop some empathy with you. As
a personal touch, right?
Yeah, like a nice personal touch. But for the sake of this session, I will just show you how to publish it. So you can make it public here. So that took 6 minutes from start to finish. So you now have a link here that you can share. I've actually never done a link that had an emoji in it, so I don't know if that's going to work. You can edit it to take out the emoji. And then also you could create a separate link for each place you want to share it. And then when you share those links, it will track where your clicks are coming from. So that's a really good way to check where you have good distribution, where your audience is hanging out, because otherwise you might post it on Twitter and Facebook and you get a load of people clicking through, but you don't know which was more successful. So that's a really good way to check the channels that you're trying to share this on. Another thing, so anyone who signs up here you'll get an email notification, and it will also go into your stats page. So this is tracking how many people are looking at your page, how many email addresses have you collected, and what's the conversion percentage. So the idea is that you'll keep an eye on this. you'll try and get those views as high as you can. So you've got enough data to see what the conversion percentage is. And if it's low, say less than 10%, then you might think, okay, there is something there, but maybe I'm not finding these people in the right place. Maybe the people who are seeing this page are not quite the right audience. So then you can start putting it elsewhere. If your conversion percentage is 0, then you can maybe reassess, like, is this something people need? Is this a real problem that I should be solving, or should I pivot it to something else? And so the idea is that you will keep making changes, keep updating it, make more pages with slightly different copy, and share them in different places to try and find out what's working. And I just quickly show you a few other settings you can make. So here you can actually change the page name. Oh, you can change the page URL as well down here. So I can get rid of that. You can put in some like gradient headlines. This is the social image that will show up when you post it on places like Twitter.
Like a thumbnail?
Like, yeah, like thumbnail, exactly. So that's quite important, because on places like Facebook and Twitter, that's like the biggest thing you see. You can also have it direct to a website instead of capturing their email. You can send the email signups to Airtable. And then also, this is really important. So you can enable conversation starters, which means that everyone who drops their email in that box will get an email from you, which you can customize. So this one, standard one, is what motivated you to sign up. And then what I find is that I just get, probably 10% of people reply to that, but then I've started a conversation with the customer, and then I can ask them, what did you like about this idea? What are really your problems? Do you want to jump on a Zoom call with me, and so on? So that's actually like a really good way to get into the whole thing of like pivoting your idea or iterating based on feedback from customers. And that's probably the most important thing, is to get that feedback.
Nice.
So yeah, and then you should see add to group here. So you can add this to Build Weekend, and when you do that, it will show up on the Build Weekend leaderboard page, and you'll be able to see who's getting the most views and who's getting the most conversions, and so on. So it will just be a nice way to compare people's ideas. And you will also be able to, if you go on the page of one of the other members, you'll be able to like leave comments and give them feedback, and then they can make changes based on your feedback. So I will stop talking now, because I think there are a couple of questions in the chat which I should probably address. I wasn't doing a monologue.
It's a great demo, Kieran. It's amazing how fast you can put this up to start validating, right? Yeah, a few questions coming in the chat indeed. Lucas, you are still in the train, I think. So your question is related to Malvika's question. So let's start with that first then. Malvika, you put it in the chat, but maybe you also want to ask it here.
Hi, Kieran. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you for the conversation starter. I put up my first yep.so page, I think in Feb, and I still, 4 months after, even though I'm not promoting it, I still get emails from people. So it's amazing. I just wanted to tell you how good that specific feature is. So thank you. The other thing I wanted to address with this was that, as we continue building and, maybe pivoting our original idea with added features or updating things, do you suggest we update the yep.so page to reflect these changes? Or do you suggest we create new ones with updated copy? What do you think works better?
Well, it's a good question. At the moment, I have just been updating my pages as things change, but I think it does make sense to make a new page, really, because depending on how much you've changed, you may want to validate this new version of the idea. So yeah, I think making a new page makes a lot of sense. And actually, I want to build in like the ability to split test pages, so you could have it so they go to this URL, but 50% of the time it'll show them one version, and 50% of the time it'll show them the other version, and it will track the conversions separately for each version of the page. So you can, by doing that, you can learn, you know, which version of your copy is better and so on. But I also think it would be great to be able to make just new versions of pages that replace the old version, and then you separately start tracking conversion. So I'll have a think about that. But yeah, I think from a scientific point of view, making a separate page would be better.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
No worries. And thanks for the feedback as well. That would make a very good testimonial, actually. So writing.
I'll drop it something.
Thank you.
That was one. Yeah, we used the YEP board also during the bootcamp, and that's where Malvika already tried it. So that's great. And then Lucas' question was related to Malvika's. If you have a waiting list and based on your conversations with users, you make some changes to the ID, how do you know that the first interested users are still interested when the ID changes along the way?
Yeah, well, you don't really, do you? I guess that's the hope, is that the conversations with the users are going to encapsulate and improve what those people want. So unless you are somehow the audience of people that have been looking at your page have changed from, say, at the beginning you were only posting it on Facebook, and then towards the end you were posting it on Reddit, and your idea changed based on what the Reddit people said, and it turned out that the Facebook users weren't interested in that. Unless you're doing it like that, which I guess could happen, but unless you're doing it like that, I would hope that the original people would still be interested, as ideally you would have improved your idea. But yeah, there's no way of knowing that until you actually send them all an email saying, you know, what do you think of this? Make another page and send it to them and say the idea is slightly changed. Please give your feedback.
I think that makes sense to keep talking with them, keep the conversations going. Yeah. One other question was from Kat. I'm not sure. She put the camera down, I think so. Kat asked,
yeah, I'm here.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, same for me, by the way. I still get people that subscribe to the YEP page while my product is already live. So I'm then emailing them like, hey, you can now visit this. It's really fun to see.
Well, so you can change the page so that instead of the email sign up, it's just a redirect to your website. So when they click the button,
okay.
it takes you to the website.
Okay, I will have to figure that out. But my question was, how did you validate YEP?
I didn't really validate it properly at all. I've really only learned about validation as I've been building this product for validation. The irony. But I mean, I validated it in a way. Well, basically, I built a very basic version to start with, so I didn't follow my own advice, and then I made a video of just the input of like building a simple landing page, and I posted that on Twitter, and people really liked it. It just, the tweet did really well, and people were like commenting saying this is so cool. So I kind of validated that people were interested in landing pages, and people liked the concept of like typing what you see is what you get, that kind of input. But yeah, I did not scientifically validate the concept behind YEP, and as a result, I'm still searching for product market fit. Like I do get quite a lot of people signing up and quite a lot of people using it, and giving positive feedback, but definitely not enough to say I have product market fit, and I'm never quite sure what they're using it for, or are they just signing up because they want to see how it was built, or like what you can do with Bubble, because it's all built with Bubble, by the way. So yeah, I hope that's not a disappointing answer, but that is the truth.
Oh, thank you. Interesting to hear.
All right. Does someone else have questions about the journey?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Kieran, have you had any users that already have an existing product and have used Jep for launching either like side projects like related to their original product, or like have used it to launch iterations of their product?
I don't know if I have. I might have done, but I just don't know about it. But yeah, it does seem like it could be a really good idea for that. I personally have used it to create landing pages for stuff that already existed, as a way to just create a landing page and give a bit more of a sense. So like if you have a product on Gumroad, you know, Gumroad pages, they all look the same and they're all just a wall of text basically. So for my bubble course, I made a page on Yep so that I could promote the bubble course. And I'm thinking about making a few other different pages that all look slightly different to, again, test what channels and what copy resonates with people, because on Gumroad, I can only have this one page. So it could be that I could be posting this in loads of different places with loads of different formats and reaching more people that way. So
yeah, that experimentation type of feature, I think, will be interesting to see it as a part of the pro plan of Jep. Like, because like creating, like as we just saw now, creating a landing page with Jep, it's insanely easy and it's pretty straightforward, and that's amazing. But being able to test what works and what doesn't will be definitely something that people will be more interested in paying for, I think. So.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, okay. I'll have that done by next week.
Yeah.
No, I won't. I'm supposed to be marketing this week, so I'm not allowed to build anything else.
Do you have schedules for marketing and building? How do you distribute your time for
that? Terribly. Well, I'm trying to do the like 50 thing where you do a week of building, a week of marketing. It's not going so well, and I just because Harold encouraged me, I just committed to do 30 days of one marketing thing per day. But I actually spoke to some other people who said that if you're not getting enough conversions from like free to paid, or you're not seeing, you don't think you've got product market fit, then kind of you're wasting your time doing like loads of marketing, because you're just going to get people who come in and then like bounce off. So that made me think, actually, maybe I should be building these features that people are asking for and then doing the marketing later. But perhaps that is just me making the typical excuses not to do marketing, and perhaps I will never do any marketing if I keep building more and more features. So it's a difficult one to decide. But yeah, I think ideally it should be, I think 80% marketing, 20% building, especially when it's like the product is at a state where it really is mainly done.
Yeah, and I like you mentioned, I'm also doing this marketing challenge, and Kat also already joined. So if other people want to join too for a project, you're more than welcome. But I after the first days, I was thinking like it's not only marketing we have to do, but also just like sales, right? And that's related to marketing, but we have to reach out to people we think that could use our a product, like in your case, Malvika, to travel agencies or places where tourists go. And it's marketing and sales also related to each other a lot. But I just think everything is marketing from now, but perhaps you could reach out to educators or something to like. But yeah, if people want to join the marketing challenge, it's if you have a product, and also always, otherwise we can also start that after the build weekend, but hopefully after the build weekend, everyone has a new product that has to be marketed. So that might be a great next challenge, because and you also created this marketing challenge with the Yep page. You started it with the Yep page, I think, Peter. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I validated it with a Yep page. And it was going to be 100 days of marketing. And then I said to Max, hey, what do you think of me doing 100 days of marketing? Would that be like stepping on your toes with 100 days of no code? And he was like, no, it's fine. And then I thought, actually 100 days is a long time. So 30 days of marketing. I mean, yeah, 100 days of building with no code, that sounds like heaven, but 30 days of marketing is already more than enough.
Yeah.